Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to Cycling World. Stage 3 of the Tour Down Under delivered exactly what many expected from the moment the route was revealed. A controlled profile, rising temperatures, and a finish clearly designed for the sprinters. From Henley Beach to Nairne, the peloton covered 135 kilometres at a brisk pace, fully aware that this was a day where discipline and patience would outweigh bold attacks. On paper, it looked like a straightforward stage. No long climbs, no terrain capable of breaking the race apart. But conditions always matter. With temperatures approaching 30 degrees, the effort became more subtle and more demanding. Hydration, concentration, and positioning took priority. In these circumstances, mistakes are rarely spectacular, but they are always costly. From the opening kilometres, the attitude of the peloton was unmistakable. Control came first. The memory of previous editions, including unexpected outcomes on similar stages, was still fresh. This time, there would be no complacency. Attacks were allowed to form, but never to grow unchecked. The message was simple. The sprint would decide the stage, and nothing would be left to chance. Several riders tried their luck early, eager to escape the routine of a flat day. Eventually, a small breakaway established itself at the front. It gained some space, enough to animate the stage and give purpose to the early racing. But the peloton never lost its composure. The gap remained manageable, calculated, and constantly under surveillance. The route itself encouraged this controlled approach. 2 categorized climbs added structure, but neither posed a real threat to the overall scenario. They were tests of persistence rather than opportunities for chaos. Useful for secondary classifications, but not decisive for the stage outcome. Behind the breakaway, the peloton rolled smoothly, almost methodically. Teams with sprint ambitions stayed alert, gradually moving closer to the front as the kilometres passed. There was no urgency. Everyone understood that the heat would gradually erode the advantage of the riders ahead. Stage 3 was never meant to be explosive from the start. It was a stage built on compression, on letting the race narrow itself until only one solution remained. And from the very first hour, it was clear that everything was heading toward that inevitable conclusion. As expected, on a day destined for a sprint, the first real fight of the stage unfolded long before the final kilometres. The battle to form the breakaway was intense, with several riders eager to seize an opportunity that flat stages rarely offer. No one wanted to spend the day hidden inside the peloton, especially with television exposure and mountain points on the line. Eventually, a small group managed to establish itself at the front. Urianstad Buggy Martin, Peleni Enzo, and Weisstroffer Baptiste became the most visible protagonists of the day. Their advantage grew gradually, never dramatically, but enough to give shape to the race and force the peloton to remain attentive. From the start, it was clear their mission was not to win the stage, but to make the most of the terrain available. The key moment for the breakaway came at Wickham's Hill, the most demanding climb of the day. With gradients reaching double digits at its steepest point, it offered a brief chance to test legs and ambition. Buggy Martin seized that moment perfectly, cresting the climb first and collecting valuable points for the King of the Mountains classification. It was not a violent attack, but a measured effort built on rhythm rather than explosiveness. Further along the route, Mount Barker provided another opportunity to score points, and once again Buggy Martin showed his commitment, extending his lead in the mountain standings. Peleni Enzo and Weisstroffer Baptiste also remained active, contesting intermediate sprints at Meadows and Echunga, where seconds and points were distributed without affecting the overall hierarchy of the race. Despite their determination, the reality of the stage slowly began to assert itself. The heat took its toll. Each kilometre demanded more effort. Each pull at the front felt heavier than the last. Meanwhile, behind them, the peloton continued its steady, disciplined pursuit. No panic, no sudden accelerations, just constant pressure. With around 10 kilometres remaining, the gap began to fall decisively. The final attacks from the break were brave but symbolic. The peloton, now fully organised, absorbed the escapees one by one. Their work was done. They had animated the stage, collected points, and written their chapter of the day. As the race transitioned into its final phase, the focus shifted entirely. The breakaway was history. The sprint was approaching, and the real battle was about to begin. While the breakaway slowly reached the end of its journey, the most decisive work of the day was happening quietly inside the peloton. On stages like this, Victory is not built through spectacular attacks, but through patience, discipline, and collective control. Stage 3 of the Tour Down Under was a perfect example of that invisible battle. The pace set by the peloton was never aggressive, but it was relentless. Just fast enough to keep the break within reach without forcing unnecessary efforts. Teams with clear sprint ambitions shared the workload, rotating at the front and maintaining a compact, stretched formation that discouraged any late surprises. The race felt calm on the surface, but the tension beneath was constant. The heat played a crucial role. Riding close to 30 degrees, managing hydration and energy became as important as power output. Every acceleration had to be justified, every move calculated. Riders knew that wasting energy early would be punished in the final kilometres, when positioning and freshness would be decisive. As the distance to the finish decreased, the dynamic inside the peloton began to change. The focus shifted from chasing the break to fighting for space. Small movements became more aggressive. Teams started to form their lead-out trains. Riders searched for wheels to follow, shelter from the wind, and safe paths through the narrowing roads. The final 40 kilometres were a lesson in race management. The breakaway was no longer a threat, but it still required attention. The gap came down gradually, without panic. There was no single acceleration to close it. Instead, it was the cumulative effect of sustained speed and collective discipline. Hierarchy became visible. The best organised teams naturally drifted toward the front. Others fought to hold their position. Every roundabout, every bend, every change in road width forced riders to make quick decisions. Hesitation meant losing ground. Confidence meant gaining it. With 10 kilometres to go, the stage had fully transformed. The escapees were absorbed. The peloton was intact but tense. Sprinters were protected. Led-out men were in place. What had been a controlled day now turned into a high-speed chess match, where one mistake could erase hours of perfect work. Stage 3 did not demand explosive climbing or bold tactics. It demanded concentration. Under heat, speed, and pressure, the smallest details became decisive. And the peloton had done everything necessary to deliver the stage to its final and inevitable moment. With the breakaway absorbed and the race fully under control, Stage 3 entered its most dangerous and decisive phase. The final kilometres toward Nairne were no longer about strength, but about precision. Positioning became everything. Every roundabout, every slight narrowing of the road, every change of direction turned into a small battle with big consequences. The peloton surged forward as a single, stretched-out mass. Led-out trains began to take clear shape, each team fighting to protect its sprinter and hold the critical space near the front. There was no room for hesitation. A moment of doubt could mean losing 10 positions, and in a sprint finish, that is often the difference between victory and anonymity. In this environment, INEOS Grenadiers executed their plan with remarkable calm. Without panic and without wasting energy, they advanced steadily, keeping their formation intact while others scrambled around them. The objective was simple: deliver their sprinter to the final straight in the best possible position. As the Flamme Rouge appeared, the speed increased dramatically. The peloton was now fully committed. Escaped riders were long gone from the narrative, and the road ahead was clear for one final effort. Timing mattered more than raw power. Launch too early and fade. Launch too late and find the door closed. This was where Sam Welsford made the difference. The Australian opened his sprint with confidence and authority, choosing a long, sustained acceleration rather than a short explosive jump. It was a decisive move. Once he hit top speed, there was no hesitation, no second guessing. Behind him, the fight for the remaining podium spots was intense. Tobias Lund Andresen and Lewis Bauer both surged forward, crossing the line in second and third place with the same time as the winner. The margins were tight, but the outcome was clear. No controversy. No need for a photo finish. The sprint had been clean and well executed. For Welsford, the victory carried extra significance. It was his first win with INEOS Grenadiers, confirming his role as a reliable finisher and rewarding the team's confidence in him at the start of the season. On a day where everything unfolded as expected, execution made the difference. Stage 3 did not produce chaos or surprise. Instead, it delivered a textbook sprint, controlled, fast, and decided by the rider who judged the moment best. Beyond the result itself, Stage 3 of the Tour Down Under carried a familiar feeling. That mix of present-day control and recent memory that often defines this race. Cycling does not only move forward, it remembers, and certain dates seem to return with meaning attached to them. January 23rd is one of those dates. On this very day 1 year ago, Javier Romo claimed his first professional victory in the 2025 edition of the race. It was also Stage 3. It also looked calm on paper, and it also broke expectations. That win marked a turning point in Romo's career and became one of the defining moments of that Tour Down Under. This time, the story unfolded differently. The peloton learned from the past. There was no hesitation, no space given, no margin for surprise. Stage 3 of 2026 was controlled from start to finish, showing how cycling evolves by absorbing its own lessons. What once allowed improvisation now demands absolute discipline. That does not diminish what happened today. It adds context. Stages like this highlight the other side of stage racing. The side built on patience, structure, and collective effort. The side where victory is not won by a single explosive moment, but by hours of concentration. Sam Welsford's win was not an isolated flash. It was the natural outcome of a perfectly managed day. A team that read the heat, the profile, and the timing better than the rest. A rider who waited, trusted the plan, and executed without hesitation. Stage 3 of the Tour Down Under 2026 will not be remembered for dramatic attacks or unexpected twists. It will be remembered as a lesson in control. In modern cycling, even the simplest looking days require total focus. When everything goes according to script, the smallest mistake can erase hours of flawless work. And so, the race continues. The general classification remains open. The sprinters have made their mark. And the Tour Down Under once again reminds us that every stage, no matter how predictable it appears, carries its own weight in the story of the race.